We have our flag right here. Mini flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bob Allen is here from KADY, and he's going to be filming the candidates, which will be available. He's going to say a couple of words about the filming process before we begin.
Well, hi everybody. I'm glad that we were able to be here. What we are is we are streaming this live right now, so that anybody anywhere in the world would be able to see it. It will then be available in the archives tomorrow morning. So we'll send the link around, and it'll be each of the individual candidates will have their own little part, okay? And it won't be something that you'd have to watch over and over again. So we hope that you'll let all your friends know, and all the candidates will be using this as in their own social media. So if we could just have one thing, since the cameras are there, the candidates are going to be up here talking. So we'd like to have as much quiet as possible, because we want to try and pick up the candidates. So now I'll give it back to you.
So I'm introducing the candidates in alphabetical order. So our first candidate is Brian McDonald, who is candidate for mayor of Oxnard.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Brian McDonald, and I am very proud to say I'm a Republican. I have been my whole life, and I will remain however much more life I have in me. But I'm very proud of that. I have decided to run for mayor. I'm midterm. I've been on the council for 6 years now. I'm midterm on this election. But I have concerns about the way our city is proceeding. I'm concerned about crime, and the two big issues I have are crime. I see crime going up in my neighborhood. I hear about it from other people in other neighborhoods. So I think it's time that we need to be proactive and start doing something about that. And secondly, is that because of the issue we had several years ago with the DA's investigation and so on and so forth, we pulled a lot of power back in the council and took it away from our staff. Well, because of that, I find that we're now stifling the processes within the city. And I'll give you an example. We have pulled so much power back to council that we can't even buy a pickup truck in the city of Oxnard without coming to council for our approval. That's a staff function. That should be done by staff. We should not be doing that. I think it's time for us to start moving forward, putting some of the authority back to staff where it belongs, so that we can proceed as we should be proceeding. Our meetings have gone from 3 hours to about 7.5, 8 hours at night. And a lot of times we don't even get through the agenda. We push stuff off, or every time we push stuff off, no decisions are made. Staff can't do their job because they're waiting for us to make a decision. So we need to get back to the business of being a city, a business of making decisions and moving forward. And that's the reason I've thrown my hat in. I've been one that's always said, if you're unhappy about the way things are going, then you need to step up and do something about it. So that's the way I am. That's why I'm here. And I'm going to follow the sage advice of a very dear friend of mine who's no longer with us, Mr. Now Takasugi, which is be sincere, be short, and be seated. So thank you very much for allowing me to be here, and I look forward to this. And my election is not till November, but I don't miss any opportunity to show up early. So I apologize for not having any printed material yet, but it will be forthcoming. So thank you very much.
Our next guest is Dan Goodwin, who is the Ventura County Assessor, and he is running for re-election.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. Appreciate the chance to be here. And thank you for letting me be your assessor for the last 15.5 years. So, running for re-election, and I'm thinking that there's a lot of things that you can, you go into. In my point of view, public service done well is an honorable calling. And part of what I hope to do, I used to complain about government a lot. I used to be self-employed before I first ran. do the self-employment tax checks and think, wow, this is a lot of money every quarter that write those checks. I used to, complain about government, and so kind of like as Brian said, decided to run for office. It's something that I thought I could do. So the area of valuation, property, real estate professional areas has been my background my whole career. Where I'm at right now is at a place of maintaining what has been a proactive effort to make sure nobody pays a penny more than the law requires in taxes. Some of you would remember many years ago, 1998, at the county fair, I used to pass out coffee cups. Did anyone here collect one of those coffee cups that had on it Abraham Lincoln's picture and a penny, and it said not a penny more? So you got one still. So, well, anyway, that still rules. And an illustration of that is, when the market started declining, of course, we all know that in August 2008, it was when there was the very visible issues on Wall Street with Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. But a year and 3 months before that, I sent out value notices to 8,200 property owners telling them that we were lowering their values. In July of 2007 was the first time we started the reduction pattern as the market, and that was proactive. That wasn't waiting until people asked me. The next year, it was 16,000 in some properties, and that was still a few months before the August catastrophe. Probably Bear Stearns should have been looking at the press releases from Ventura County Assessor. Maybe they would have quit making loans earlier. But the thing is, where that ran to, and one thing it hasn't shown up in the paper, so I'm going to tell you because I think you need to know this. I told the reporter, she's wanting to kind of write a story about the candidates, and she's trying to find something controversial. I told her, well, the issue is the office has been run well. It's been run professional. I have outstanding people working for me. They answer questions. They try to help folks. And I said, and by the way, Kathleen, did you notice the $100 million issue? So what the $100 million is we now have approximately 80,000 properties that have Prop 13 values above their market value as of each roll date. So those all receive reductions. So out of that last 4 or 5 years, if you took all the checks that would have had to been written by taxpayers if the assessor had not been proactive and add up that difference between what their real tax bill was. So this is the folks, if you've owned your house like me for a long time, you're below the market value anyway, even with the decline. But for those 80,000 people, we have saved them. Actually, not just saved like how most government talks about savings, like it saves money on sales tax because we didn't raise the sales tax. Well, no, this is right. Their tax bill. I've had people tell me, you lowered my tax bill went down $1,000 a year because of your reduction. So $100 million is how much was saved in Ventura County alone, just in Ventura County. So anyway, that's just an example of making sure nobody pays more than the law requires. The good news is for all those folks who lost so much equity, is the market starting to get their equity back. Of course, the bad news is the assessor's paying attention to that too. So I will be responsible to address the new direction as well. Okay, that's the end of my message. One last thing, I do have a lot of endorsements, which is cool. Our county district attorney, Elton Gallagly, our sheriff, a lot of folks. But one interesting story. So my oldest son lives in Ventura. And he and his wife were going to send an email to a bunch of friends that complimented Dad, say vote for Dad. And so he sent one of the copies happened to go to his grandmother, my mother. So my mother emailed back, well, you forgot one endorsement. Put Marjorie Goodwin on his endorsement list. So my mother's endorsing me too. Thank you.
Our next guest is George Yang, who is a candidate for Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you very much. Wow, a little bit right here. Let me move this down a little bit. My name is George Yang. I am from San Mateo area. I am the young Republican Vice Chair of San Mateo County. I'm a father of 2 kids. I'm an engineer by training. And 2 years ago, I decided to do something really crazy. I went to state assembly in a district that's 19% Republican, and I get 50,000 votes. Half of those are Republicans, the other half are people who look at what I have to say and like it. Larry, right there, is asking me a question. How do we get to people who are Democrats? Let me tell you how. The Democrats are very good at lying big lies. When you have big lies like high-speed rail, people look at it and say, ooh, this is big. And they don't challenge it. What we have to do is to break those lies down to smaller lies. For example, the city of Gilroy with 50,000 people, they project that the high-speed rail will have as many ridership as the city of Baltimore. Baltimore, I don't know how many people they have, but they have a football team and a baseball team. The segment between San Jose and San Francisco costs $10 billion, and you save a good 7 to 10 minutes. I talked to Green Party members, even they are shocked. 7 minutes? Really? You sure? Yes, it's only 7 to 10 minutes. So I'm running for lieutenant governor. The job actually have some duties. Number one, the lieutenant governor sits on the board of UC and CSUs. Right now, based on a study by Stanford, by 2022, every dollar that the state spends on UCs is going to go to people who are already retired. The Democratic Party strategy is very simple. They're going to wait until this thing blows up and then say, more taxes, higher sales tax, higher income tax. That's the only strategy they have. We need to figure out those problems and face it immediately. Also, as Lieutenant Governor, I will be on the board of Economic Development Commission. In that capacity, I will be the spokesperson for Californian businesses. Outside of California, I want to promote export. Right now in China, they have fake eggs, fake baby formula, fake of all kinds of things. We need to sell our products there. We need to establish a good Make in California brand. Thank you very much. So that we can sell more products and create jobs in places like Fresno, Stockton, and Imperial County. The other thing that I'm going to promote is tourism. Right now, we are promoting it one way. We say, Golden Gate Bridge, Disneyland, come and visit. They come, they take pictures and say, good, bye, I'm done. Simple idea, again. We can give them a passport of different California locations, and if they collect those stamps, go to the Queen Mary of Long Beach, go skiing, go hunting, go camping, go to the Channel Islands. Once they collect all those stamps, we can have them, give them a key to the state, or have the actors or actresses in Hollywood take a picture of them. Maybe Arnold will do it for free, I don't know. I will check with him. And the last one, Lieutenant Governor would serve on the State Lands Commission. And on that position, we need to build reservoirs to keep the water that we're going to have on wet years and save them for dry years. Thank you. And on the Lands Commission, we talk about energy production. That means natural gas, that means power plants. That even means wind and solar power if it makes sense. I'm all for it if it makes economic sense. That's what we need to do. The last thing that the Lieutenant Governor gets to do is to be an advocate for small businesses. I am going to propose litigation reform, protecting small businesses and non-profit organizations. We need to do it like that, because if we say, let's have tort reform for everybody, the liberals are going to come back and say, why are you protecting Chevron? Why are you protecting AT&T? Well, those guys have their own legal teams. We can leave them as it is for now, but we need to protect small businesses. Let me give you an example. An immigrant opened a restaurant in San Francisco. Just come from India, have no idea, the door is too narrow. Somebody goes there and say, oops, you are half too short. $100,000 in legal judgment. Why can we not have something like a fix-it rule? Fine them for $100 and give them 6 months to fix it. That makes sense. Even the liberals would say, yeah, that makes sense. That's what I will be doing. The second thing is about nonprofit organizations. I want to cap the punitive damage at the highest salary of that organization. So if you are an all-volunteer organization, and if you don't like what they are doing, Why don't you do one yourself? It's all volunteers. We need to have more choices, more services, not less. In fact, I know there's a few people running for Congress. The Democrats are going to make this issue, the minimum wage, their issue for the midterm elections. Let's tie that to litigation reform that protects small businesses. Let's make them say no. Let's show the people that who really cares about helping people and serving people and create jobs in areas where jobs are needed. I think I talked too much already. I think I want to give some time to our candidates. I'm going to be right next to Gilligan's Island. And come talk to me afterwards. My name, again, is George Yang. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much.
Our next candidate is Rob McCoy, who is running for the 44th Assembly District of California.
I wanted to share with you all a little bit about who I am. I was born and raised in San Diego, California, in a town called Coronado. My father was a naval officer, 3 tours of Vietnam, and my mother was a president of Republican Women. I walked precincts with her when I was young. I remember walking precincts for Nixon for his 2nd term, and I remember my mom's heart being broken when Nixon stepped out of office. I remember the depression that came through our town, and I remember when Gerald Ford beat Reagan, which was my mother's idol. She loved Ronald Reagan. The reason why I share that with you is my mom passed away about 3.5 years ago, and she was in ICU, and she had lung cancer. And only a few people can go into ICU at a time, and a couple of my siblings were in there, and my sister and I were out in the ICU. And avoiding the inevitable of my mother's passing, knowing that she was gravely ill, I was just fiddling with my phone, and I pulled up, I know it sounds strange, but I pulled up a conception calendar. And what you do is you type in your birth date, and then you get to see the day you were conceived. A little weird, but I didn't want to think about these things. So as I pulled this up, the date that came up is I was conceived the day that Kennedy was shot. So I walked into ICU to visit my mother, and she had a mask on with forced oxygen. And I said, Mom, I was looking at the conception calendar, and it says that I was conceived the day that Kennedy was shot. And with this mask, she said, you were the last in the country to know. And then interestingly enough, in October 27th of 1964, the year I was born August 10th, but in October 27th of 1964, one of the most remarkable speeches that took this country by surprise was when Ronald Reagan endorsed Barry Goldwater. And that speech was, you saw pictures of it behind as he was sharing that. It invigorated the conservative mindset throughout the United States that was waning. Of course, he lost to Lyndon Johnson with this war on poverty, and government grew out of control. And then Richard Nixon stepped in. But Ronald Reagan was 55 years old when he decided to run for president in 1966 and won. Went all the way through 1974. I had the privilege of meeting him in 1975. My mother drove me 3 hours with my other siblings because she said he's going to be president someday. I met him. He rubbed my head. He was promoting a book called The Quotable Ronald Reagan. When he rubbed my head, he signed it, and he said, best wishes, Robert McCoy, Ronald Reagan. And what he didn't realize at that moment was that he was endorsing my campaign today. So he was the first president I had the privilege of voting for, and I want to share this with you, that in 1979, and you can remember this, 1979, Carter's in office, government's out of control, inflation is double digits, interest rates are ridiculous. My father had retired from the Navy. You drive over the San Diego Bay Bridge and watch the ever-decreasing status of our Pacific fleet as our military was in desperate straits. And then our embassy was invaded. Our embassy personnel were taken hostage in Iran. And as we watched this misery unfold on the television, an attempted rescue by some of our special forces, and our helicopters were strewn across the desert in that failed attempt. And the nation was in absolute depression. And I remember that vividly. I remember my parents going through that, wondering how they were going to make it happen. The president would come on, President Carter would come on the television set, tell us to turn down the thermostats, put on a sweater. Gas stations were closed, and our economy was grinding to a halt. I remember the highlight for us in 1979 going into 1980 in the Winter Olympics of 1980. I remember the highlight for our nation was when our hockey team beat the Russians. That was like Seabiscuit winning a horse race in the Depression. That's what we rallied around in the indomitable spirit as Americans. And the depression of that and the misery of it was so overwhelming. And this is what ended up happening is I was a swimmer at the time. I know it's hard to believe I was a competitive swimmer. I look more like a buoy now, but I was a swimmer. In the competitive world of swimming, my heroes were all getting ready for the Olympics. And our foreign policy of Jimmy Carter was to deny our Olympians the ability to go to Moscow to compete. What kind of a country were we in? My parents were so overwhelmed and I was disgusted. And then I remember this hulking figure that I'd met years before steps in, runs for President of the United States, ends up winning, Ronald Reagan. And the minute he's elected, the hostages are free, the lights on the gas stations go on, and the engine of America begins to churn again. And I had the privilege of witnessing all that. I remember in the process of that time in 1978, walking with my mother in the depression of Carter and pushing forward Proposition 13, which was the people's initiative that saved this state for the most part, or we'd be even worse. We'd be like Detroit right now. That was the influence upon my life. And now as I've been born and raised in California, my father was born and raised in California, and now as I've gone through sales as a divisional manager and worked for AC Nielsen and Unilever, graduating from Fresno State with a history degree, now I look as I've been a minister in the Conejo Valley for 13 years, I'm watching 70% of the growth of Texas go with our jobs leaving the state. We have the highest gas tax, sales tax, income tax, ad infinitum. It's nauseating, it's disgusting, and I'm sick of it. I love what I do. I'm a good minister. And I love my community. And I'm running not because I seek any political gain or I want to pursue anything of notoriety. I'm running because I'm tired of the way this state has gone down the tubes and I want it to stop. I'm tired of turning politics into a corporation where we have lobbyist money and union money running everything. I don't have a single dime of any lobbyist money. I have, with the exception of the Rand Paul PAC, which is my friend Rand Paul. His son William spent the summer with us. Other than that, I have no union money and I have no lobbyist money. I have the people's money, and I am not owned by the lobbyists and I'm not owned by the unions. I'm here to do your bidding, and I'm here to work for the people, the 44th District, and I need your help. Let's get it done. God bless you guys.
And last but not least, we have Raphael Dagnesis, who's running for Congress.
I'm not that good. I gotta read my notes. LA Unified. Blame them. 43 years ago, my family and I left the tyranny of communist Cuba and landed here in this great nation. Today, I consider myself a born-again American. I grew up in the inner city and was witness to the social cancer of gangs, drugs, and violence, and what generational government dependency does to families and communities. I've served my country as a United States Marine Gunnery Sergeant. Thank you. Semper Fi. I've been a law enforcement officer for over 13 years with a background in gangs and undercover narcotics. During my tenure, I received over 50 commendations from acts of bravery to letters of appreciation from citizens. I've come close to my own death in service of others, and I would do it again. Service is in my DNA. I'm an active philanthropist, not with other people's money, with my own money. I've been a business owner for 13 years and an entrepreneur all my life. I've won national awards for my efforts. I've experienced both failures and successes in business. During my failures, we had to sell our home, sell our cars, and move into a small rental. I did not declare bankruptcy, even though my attorneys advised me to. Instead, I worked 12, 14-hour days, 7 days a week until we recovered. Each time, learning a valuable lesson. Now, having the ability, despite your origins, to achieve success after failure, through vision, inspiration, and hard work, is so uniquely American. My story is a story of inspiration and living the American dream through hard work. I want to inspire those less fortunate and those who have given up to understand how lucky and blessed we are to live in the great nation. That falling victim to government handouts when you don't need them is the process of removing the human spirit and making you an economic slave to the system. I speak of these issues from not opinions, text, or political affiliations. I speak from actual experiences. First, as a victim of the communist revolution, an immigrant who grew up in the inner city, and because of loving, protective parents, inspirational immigrant families, and the freedoms provided by the U.S. Constitution, I am here speaking to you, asking for your vote to be your representative in the United States Congress. Only in America is this possible. Today we have issues like the Unaffordable Care Act, Obamacare. Remember, you can keep your doctor, you can keep your insurance, your rates are going to go down. We all know those were all lies. Solution, repeal it. The former Speaker of the House pushed a 2,700-page bill stating we have to pass the bill so that we can find in it. Insane. I propose that all bills are presented individually with an extended period of review so that our representatives can actually read them and earn their money. Also, allowing the American people to express concerns and their opinions. We have full-time career politicians who have overseen the disgraceful VA's handling of our precious veterans. We have Benghazi. The government handling was disgusting, criminal. Our national debt is $17 trillion and growing. I bring these recent issues because 7 months ago, a former member of Congress told me that I was unqualified to run for Congress because I did not have legislative experience. My response, full-time career legislators, politicians, are the ones that got us into this mess. I've served my country. I have fought hardcore criminals in the inner city. I've created both entry-level and high-paying jobs. I have fought the bureaucracies of cities, state, and the federal government. I, sir, am more qualified than most. My name is Rafael Dagnasis. I will fight for freedom, limited government, peace through strength, term limits. I will not embrace amnesty, as my Republican opponent has openly stated. I will fight to close the Department of Education, bringing back those wasted taxpayer dollars to our teachers and our children. I will inspire, not blame. I will fight for jobs, jobs. I will fight for you. Support real change. Vote for me June 3rd is a vote for you. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our country.
concludes our program for this evening. Thank you so much to our candidates, to all of our guests. I hope you had a wonderful time, and voting day is Tuesday, so hope to see you volunteering at the polls and volunteering at the Republican headquarters, making phone calls, and we look forward to a positive election. Go Republicans!